What's up, guys? It is the 10th shelf of my wrestling collection. We are in the age of wrestling that I really love. I liked that with this brand split too, that they were doing these London pay-per-views as brand splits as well, as this was the Raw exclusive brand split London show. So I liked that. You know, Jazz and Molly Holly versus Trish Stratus and Jackie. You know, they had four people who could actually wrestle. So it wasn't a horrible match. Spike Dudley versus William Regal for the European belt was off. You know, why would you have Spike Dudley in that spot? Don't know. Hardy Boys versus Shawn Stasiak and Brock Lesnar was good. As this was when Shawn Stasiak was playing like a crazy guy who like heard voices and all this stuff, and Lesnar and him were trying to make sure he didn't get in the match. And when he tagged in, the crowd just went ballistic. Great match. Bradshaw versus X-Pac. They're trying to push Bradshaw and make him big versus the NWO. Made the NWO feel really small having to face Bradshaw. Steven Richards versus Booker T. So-so. Booker T's not a hardcore wrestler. Eddie Guerrero versus RVD. Solid match. Stone Cold and Big Show. Good match. Triple H versus Undertaker, amazing match. They brought it. The Undertaker was, in my opinion, at his prime in 2002 right here. I mean, so many great matches from The Undertaker. Very, very solid for a UK pay-per-view. From that, we go into this one was very hard to find. I don't know if they just didn't release it right away or what the deal was. I had to pay a lot for this on eBay. But for some reason, this was just very, very difficult to find. When I finally did get around to watching it a few years after it had actually aired, you know, it was a pretty solid pay-per-view. You know, The Undertaker and Hulk Hogan, you know, for the title, you know, really good match. Yep, Eddie Guerrero versus RVD again in this pay-per-view. You know, Trish Stratus and versus Stacy Keibler with the Dudley Boys, as they split up the Dudley Boys with the brand split. Brock Lesnar versus the Hardy Boys. This time they didn't want Shawn Stasiak there. I wish they would have kind of done that in this pay-per-view as well. Yep, Stone Cold versus Big Show and Ric Flair was weird. I didn't like that angle. I don't know why they just didn't have Stone Cold versus Ric Flair. Kurt Angle versus Edge, hair versus hair. You know, it made, you know, Kurt Angle adopted then his bald look. You know, weird angle, but still a good match. Jericho versus Triple H. Billy and Chuck versus Rikishi and Rico. Stupid. And then Hollywood Hogan versus The Undertaker was a really good match. But again, I don't know. If you know, comment down below why this was so difficult to find. If you know, yeah, for sure. From that, we go to King of the Ring 2002. Solid pay-per-view. You know, King of the Rings were starting to fall flat at this point. This was the last King of the Ring that they had as far as a pay-per-view. You know, the returning Rock, of course. The Hurricane versus Jamie Noble was actually a really good match. They were pushing, you know, new cruiserweights. They should have kept doing that, but they never did. You know, Nadia, great man, you know, great as a number 2 as well. Loved that gimmick, Jamie Noble and Nadia. RVD versus Chris Jericho, Test versus Brock Lesnar in the King of the Ring tournament match. Those were good. RVD and Jericho was fantastic. Test versus Brock Lesnar was great. You knew the two of them were going to end up facing each other in the finals. But RVD and him put on a great match, him and Lesnar. Ric Flair and Eddie Guerrero, another great match. Trish Stratus and Molly Holly delivered in this pay-per-view. The Hogan-Kurt Angle match was okay. Angle didn't seem to work super well with Hulk Hogan. And then Undertaker versus Triple H was a fantastic match. All in all, very, very solid. Probably one of the better King of the Rings in quite a while. Probably since 2000. Then again, we go to another one that was very difficult to find. Again, comment down below if you know why this was so difficult to find. Didn't find it till a few years later. Had to pay a fortune for it off of eBay. Pretty solid pay-per-view though. This is one Bischoff and Stephanie took over as the GMs. Yep, you had Bubba Ray and Spike Dudley versus Benoit and Guerrero. Then you had Jamie Noble with Nadia versus Billy Kidman. Again, they're doing great. Starting off pushing the Cruiserweight title here. What happened after that, I don't know. Jeff Hardy and William Regal. Okay match. I can kind of see why getting rid of the European title and the hardcore title would make sense. They just had too many belts at this point. John Cena and Jericho, very solid match considering Cena was just getting here. RVD versus Brock Lesnar, great match again, rematch from King of the Ring. Booker T versus Big Show, not very good. Again, he's not a hardcore wrestler. Hogan and Edge versus Christian and Lance Storm was great. Why they didn't continue with Hogan and Edge as a tag team after this pay-per-view, I don't know. I don't know if Hogan got hurt or what happened there. Comment down below if you know. Undertaker, The Rock, and Kurt Angle, amazing match. Like I said, The Undertaker was just delivering non-stop this year. All in all, good pay-per-view. Then we had the Global Warning Tour from Melbourne. And this is what makes me think that Hogan did get hurt. Because he was supposed to be in this main event match. It was supposed to be a 4-way match for the title, which would have been amazing to see. Because all three of them got big pops when they came out too. This was kind of like an Insurrection Rebellion pay-per-view, only in Australia instead of London. But the crowd was much bigger and much more into it. So it felt big, even though you knew nothing was going to really happen. Rikishi versus Rico, okay match. Jamie Noble and the Hurricane delivered again. Billy Kidman and Rey Mysterio, they were a tag team in WCW. Rey Mysterio had debuted and they put him in a tag team match. And Billy Kidman had lost a step at this point. I don't know if he just bulked up too much to where he just couldn't move like he used to. But just all in all, kind of a horrible match. Jericho and Edge, okay. Everyone likes a bra and panties match with Stacy Keibler and Tori Wilson, come on. But then the main event was great. I would have loved to have seen what would have happened if Hogan was there. All in all, pretty solid pay-per-view. Then we go to SummerSlam 2002. And this was when they finally started to make SummerSlam feel like a big deal again. The Rock versus Brock Lesnar. You know, boy, that's a big hype, especially at that point. And a very, very good card, too. Rey Mysterio and Kurt Angle, fantastic. Jericho and Ric Flair, fantastic. Edge and Eddie Guerrero, fantastic. They really played up on the brands, even on the pay-per-view, the GMs, talking about how their matches were going to be better than the other, brands' matches as well. Because on the big 4 pay-per-views, they had both brands on. Lance Storm and Christian, they were okay as a tag team versus Booker T and Goldust. They were okay. Benoit versus RVD for the Intercontinental title, classic. And I believe this was when Benoit was starting to come back from his injuries as well. That's what makes you wonder, too, how that invasion angle would have been if Benoit and Eddie Guerrero had been healthy as well. Because that could have played into it. They maybe could have used them in the WCW role. I don't know. Undertaker versus Test. It just seemed like they were, it's the Un-American versus, the American Badass. The Rock versus Brock Lesnar was fantastic. Brock really showed what he could do. Shawn Michaels versus Triple H, I believe, stole the show, though. The returning Shawn Michaels in a it was a believable angle, considering what the feud and the fact that they were friends. The chemistry was there. The crowd was just going nuts this entire pay-per-view. They booked it in a small arena, but they probably didn't think it was going to be as big as it was. So, great pay-per-view. We go from that into Unforgiven. Again, solid pay-per-view. Kane and Booker T and Goldust and Bubba Ray versus the Un-Americans. This was the returning Kane. He got a big pop when he came out with the new theme and all that. I liked the Billy and Chuck versus Rosie and Jamal angle with the GMs being involved, Eric Bischoff and Stephanie. Edge and Eddie Guerrero was okay. Trish Stratus and Molly Holly done for like the 4th or 5th time just this year, which is ridiculous. Jericho and Ric Flair was a decent match. Kurt Angle versus Benoit, they always deliver. Do you even have to ask? And then Brock Lesnar versus The Undertaker. These two work so well together. You know, they stole this show. They owned this pay-per-view. And then Raw was starting to get its own world title because they didn't want to take the belt off of Lesnar. So they had Triple H versus RVD, trying to elevate RVD into the main event picture. This was in the era where they kept saying Triple H didn't want to give up the belt. You know, so, you know, he kept facing different people and never losing. This was the first in that line of people, RVD. Solid pay-per-view, though. I enjoyed it. And you got No Mercy. This wasn't as good as Unforgiven, but it was still good. Tori Wilson versus Dawn Marie. Good angle there with her dad being involved. Cruiserweight title again. They're trying to make it mean something. Jamie Noble and Tajiri. RVD and Ric Flair. You know, with their feud off of the last pay-per-view when Flair joins Triple H. Great match. Trish Stratus and Victoria. Finally, someone else for Trish Stratus to face. Jericho and Christian as a tag team were very good. Booker T and Goldust, You know, then you had the WWE Tag Team Title Tournament Finals. I love how they threw Chris Benoit and Kurt Angle together versus Edge and Rey Mysterio. You know, better than being Rey Mysterio and Billy Kidman. Great match. Absolutely fantastic. Triple H versus Kane. This is where they were going to get rid of the Intercontinental title and merge some of these belts. You know, average. It was a dumb angle. It was known as one of the worst angles of the time too, with Kane's dead girlfriend Katie Vick or whatever. It was so stupid. And then the Hell in a Cell match was an absolute classic. Like I said, The Undertaker couldn't have a bad match at this point in time. I mean, oh man. Great pay-per-view though, otherwise. Not as good as Unforgiven, but still good. Then we got Rebellion. This was the SmackDown exclusive London pay-per-view. You know, they had, you know, because they didn't have all the big names on SmackDown, they had most of them on Raw. So they used SmackDown to kind of develop all these younger people. And I think they did a really, really good job on SmackDown. There was even points in time where SmackDown was even better than Raw, even though Raw had the bigger stars. But Funaki versus Crash, this was towards the end of Crash Holly's career. The Big Valboski versus Chuck Palumbo was a weird pairing versus Devon and Ron Simmons. You know, Billy Kidman and Tori Wilson, you obviously believe that because they're married, versus John Cena and Dawn Marie. That was actually a pretty good match. Probably the best match Billy Kidman had in WWE. Rikishi versus Albert, stupid. Booker T was the one guy they allowed from Raw to come over to face Matt Hardy. I don't know if there was an injury or something like that that brought Booker T over. Don't know. Jamie Noble versus Rey Mysterio versus Tajiri. Like I said, they were doing a really good job at pushing the Cruiserweight title, and I don't know what happened, why they stopped. Kurt Angle and Chris Benoit versus Eddie Guerrero and Chavo Guerrero. Great match. Such chemistry between the four of them. And then Brock Lesnar versus Edge, not very good. Edge didn't work well with Lesnar, and Edge didn't have the confidence he had later on when he became champion. He wasn't ready yet at this point. But all in all, a very solid, considering it was a UK pay-per-view at the time, very solid. Now we've got probably my favorite pay-per-view of all of 2002. Survivor Series, the debut of the Elimination Chamber match. You know, this card was just every match I loved. Scott Steiner debuting. They did a really good job doing that. Jamie Noble versus Billy Kidman. They were trying to make the Cruiserweight title mean something, but Billy Kidman was past his prime, so not Jamie Noble's fault. It was an okay match. Trish Stratus and Victoria in a hardcore match. I thought I would hate that match. It was really, really good. You know, Jeff Hardy, Bubba, Spike, versus 3 Minute Warning and Rico was just kind of a opening match. But the tag team match, 3 solid SmackDown tag teams, showed that SmackDown was really trying to push the tag team division. That's where Raw really wasn't doing that good of a job. They were more focused on the main events. You had Brock Lesnar versus Big Show. This is when Paul Heyman turned on Brock Lesnar. And people didn't think he'd be able to pick up the Big Show for an F5, and he did, and the crowd went bananas. And then there was the Elimination Chamber match, which was so good. Like, this was before they started just throwing any random person in an Elimination Chamber match. It was only main event people that were there. And it was so good. Triple H, delivered. It felt dangerous, too. Now with no blood and all that stuff, it doesn't feel dangerous anymore. It's where before it used to be like they'd have to get stretchered out of these matches. So this is before they lost all that vibe. Amazing pay-per-view. One of my favorites of all time. Then we go to Armageddon. And usually these December pay-per-views are not good, like I've said before. This one was great. It felt big with the brand split. They had momentum going now, so they were each building up their rosters. So each match actually meant something. Torrie Wilson and Dawn Marie, they didn't have a match. They had that hookup in the hotel room that, the guys were going crazy for. The World Tag Team, Raw was trying to push their tag team titles here. Their tag team division, though, it felt kind of half-assed compared to SmackDown's. Kane versus Batista. Good match. Batista just starting off here. Just joined Evolution. I mean, he was on SmackDown with Devon, but now he's actually getting pushed well. Packaged with Evolution. Loved the Evolution angle. Edge and A-Train, actually a solid match. I liked the A-Train gimmick for Albert. I don't know why they didn't stick with that. They went to Tensai. Chris Benoit and Eddie Guerrero never have bad matches. Triple threat title for the women's title. Again, amazing match. Coming off of that momentum off of their match at Survivor Series. Big Show versus Kurt Angle. Why Lesnar wasn't in this match, I don't know. Probably because they were in the storyline. I think that they wanted Brock Lesnar to have to chase the title or win the Rumble to get a shot at the title. And then you had Shawn Michaels versus Triple H, which they delivered just as well as they did at SummerSlam. So great pay-per-view, especially for a December pay-per-view, one of the better ones. Then we have the 2003 Royal Rumble, probably one of my second favorite Royal Rumbles of all time. Great matches even leading up to the Rumble itself. Usually you're just like, oh, I want to get to the Rumble. Screw these other matches. Not in this case. Lance Storm and William Regal, great tag team. They finally found someone that meshes well with Lance Storm versus the Dudley Boys. Again, they finally put them back together. Torrie Wilson and Dawn Marie. Brock Lesnar and Big Show, great match. I didn't get the angle why Big Show would be okay with being screwed over by Kurt Angle and then face Brock Lesnar here, because now Big Show is still with Paul Heyman even though he got screwed by Paul Heyman. Kurt Angle and Chris Benoit, amazing match. Again, they never have bad matches. Triple H and Scott Steiner, solid match, better than their match at No Way Out. Again, Triple H was just mowing everyone down. But I loved the Evolution angle here, so it was a good reason why they kept the title on him. And then so many big names, because they had been building up with the brand split, all these names, to where this Royal Rumble was very entertaining. So, very solid first pay-per-view, 2003. And then finally, we have 2003 No Way Out. Again, at this point, with all the roster as stacked as it was and how good they were doing at building up the younger stars, every match felt good, big. You didn't want to miss anything, which is why I loved this era. Jericho and Jeff Hardy, amazing match with an amazing story. Regal and Storm, again, great tag team versus RVD and Kane, who also made a great tag team. Billy Kidman versus Matt Hardy. They're still trying to push the Cruiserweight title, which I liked. I just didn't think Billy Kidman had it anymore. Brock Lesnar, Chris Benoit, and Edge versus the Team Angle. Great match. Usually don't like 6-man tags, but that was a great match. Undertaker and Big Show. You know, they're trying to push Big Show here. I believe Paul Heyman was in charge of creative for SmackDown. So, you know, he's really good at building people up. Scott Steiner versus Triple H, again, not as good as their Royal Rumble match. Stone Cold and Eric Bischoff, everyone just wanted to see Eric Bischoff get his ass kicked, and the return of Stone Cold Steve Austin. And The Rock versus Hogan, definitely nowhere near as good as their WrestleMania match. You know, and of course they pushed the whole, oh, it's Montreal, it's the screw job thing, you know, for the titles. So, but yeah, like I said, this is the golden era of wrestling. This will do it for this shelf of my wrestling collection. Feel free to like and subscribe. I appreciate the support. Till next time.